to this day, and I've talked about it a little bit in Sacramento, and it relates to a veteran who I cared for on a number of occasions when I was running the inpatient wards at West Los Angeles early in my career. And it was a really, really, really sweet, lovely man who developed schizophrenia. I think he was 21 when he was in the service, in the Army. He was honorably discharged. He came back. He didn't do well. He developed addictions, and particular used a lot of crack cocaine. He had a horrible car accident, sustained a head injury, was partially paralyzed, and was on and off the streets and had a ton of justice involvement. One of the guys who, would be considered a high utilizer by the VA or any other healthcare system. Well, this guy, who I'm going to call Joe because that was his name, that is his name, found a place at a boarding care. And when he found that place at that boarding care, which was a relatively small one, I'm going to call it boarding care X, he stabilized. Now, he would come into the hospital because he would occasionally develop a UTI. When he developed a UTI, he would get lots of problems that many of us would when we have an infection, particularly when it becomes systemic. But when he would come in, and when he came in and he was unstable, it was not a pretty sight. It was very, very challenging. But what would happen is that the operator would call the ward, and I would get on the phone and I would say, hey, what's going on with Joe? Well, I think he may have another infection. Bring him in, tune him up. Once Joe became stable, more stable, what did he talk to me about? Dr. Sherin, I just want to go back to do bingo. Why did he want to go back to do bingo? Because that's what he cared about. And that's what his family and his boarding care supported and provided for him. And everybody loved Joe as the bingo guy. You don't get that in most places. This is a guy who had a number of hits. This is a guy who would be in the streets and probably die, in and out of the jail and perhaps die. But because there are resources that you find at boarding cares, particularly when they're connected to the healthcare system in a meaningful way, actually live fulfilling lives, participate as a community. So Joe had his people. He had the operator, the other clients who were there. He had a place, which was the boarding care where he had a room, and he had purpose, which was his bingo. And if we can figure out a way to get people connected to other people with places to live and purpose in life, we can create a whole new realm in our space. I thank you so much for being here, and I really want to recognize that we have technical experts here. We're all working together, and it's important that we take this knowledge and that we figure out real solutions. And I think that's a part of what we're trying to do today. And the state is with us. So it's time for us to ramp it up. It's time for us to push and push and push, recognizing that this finish line is actually in sight and we're going to get there. Thank you.